call saying that he'd been in an accident.
Immediately I felt like something's happened to my shoulder. I had hit it on the right-hand side as I saw what I didn't even know was an opening door.
He was in a lot of pain, still lying on the ground. They were preparing him to put him in the ambulance. That was just the first step in a chain of events that we had no idea what was coming for us. Five days after the bike accident, Paul was driving up near where we live, and he called me to say, "Marie, I've had an accident." And my first word was, "You're joking."
I remember feeling, what the heck is going on? Because I didn't even see it. I didn't see the car.
In the weeks to follow, he was bumping into me. He would go to cross a road and a car would be coming and I had to pull him back. Over the course of the next few weeks, started to do some tests with Paul that they normally do for, I guess, rugby players that have got concussion. Eventually, the specialist told us that it'd be a good idea to get an MRI just to check.
We were just setting up to go out for a fish. Marie rang and said, "Hey, the specialist needs us to come immediately or get the family together." I think we looked at each other and it was kind of like, this must be serious.
The results we got from the MRI were these 3 tumours that they could see, a 5 centimetre, 3 centimetre, and then a smaller spot in his brain.
I remember looking at Dad. There's only one other time in my life I remember that look where he didn't know what to do. It was the hardest thing, I think, having to watch my dad and my mum's live reaction and then kind of sitting there going, there's nothing you can say.
The next morning, the doctor came beside the bed with his little computer showing us that there were spots all throughout Paul's lungs, liver and adrenal glands, and he said, "See all that?" He said, "That's not good." And basically we're saying to us, it's not operable. It's terminal melanoma cancer and we can't do anything about it.
Stage 4, and basically you're going to face the end. All that enveloped me was this darkness, the darkness of the unknown, the darkness of a feeling that I had cancer that was beyond my ability to control. Not only was it the brain tumours, of which, as we've said, 2 of them were extremely large, but then being riddled with the tumours throughout the body, it's kind of like even if we do the brain surgery, the reality is we may not live through this.
I said, "Paul, have you said your goodbyes to your family? Make sure there's nothing left unsaid that needs to be said. Even if he survived the surgery, there was a great unknown as to what all that would look like."
I'm not sure you could have a more difficult conversation because really what we're talking about is the end of someone's life, really, and the fact that we have only a small chance of treatment working and making that person well again. So people generally only have that conversation once in their life.
We didn't know whether Paul was going to make it through the operation or if he would be functioning, in his mental capacity.
I wanted to get our 3 boys who were all adults and obviously were so impacted by the news and the possibilities that were in front of us. And I said to Marie, I want to get an hour each with them individually. And just as a dad and as a son, that we would communicate, that we would just open our hearts. Even now I get emotional because it was like there were no holes barred. We were facing the reality of death around the corner. May not be able to do life together in the future. And this could be, before the operation, the last time we have here on Earth.
As we drive down the motorway at 5:30 a.m, with not a lot of sleep from the previous few days of the trauma of everything, saying it's going to be okay. And within the tears, me mustering up, the sentiment that, it is going to be okay.
I just had this incredible peace. I mean, I can only explain it as a heavenly encounter. I just really knew that peace was in the room with Paul in that operating theatre.
when I came to, obviously, the first thing that I thought about is I'm still here. I can still see. And I had 38 staples because they had to access the back of the brain to get at the tumours. But that feeling of, wow, I've still got life, I've still got things in front of me, because nothing was a given. The reality was that my brain had been tampered with, and I made light of it. I said, well, there's only sawdust up there, but the truth was that there was a whole runway in front of us that we hadn't thought about of recovery. I found myself after that first operation just needing some time. And in the moment of sort of the depth of again feeling, I don't know where this is going to land, I don't know what the outcomes are fully going to be, I do have this faith, but are we going to get through? And they're all, I've learned, are real questions that we shouldn't be afraid to ask. But in the middle of that and in the stillness of the moment, all of a sudden I realized, look, there's a rainbow in the sky. God will help us get through what seems impossible. I just felt like my smile came back and I felt my heart was lifted. And again, it was like fuel to the tank, to be honest. It's like, we can get through this, we can keep going.
When we found out that Paul had to go back in for surgery a second time, it was really hard to take, to be honest. We all felt like just a real blow. And so we planned Paul's funeral in the lounge room.
Some of the moments were pretty dark. I just cried out and said, it's enough, it's too hard, it's too much. I would rather die now than just to live in this world unless there's a purpose in this.
Yeah.
It brought to me an understanding of why some people say enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'd go home and I allowed myself to cry and to feel my own emotions, but then try and be as strong as I could when I got to the hospital, which wasn't always possible. We would see each other and I'd end up in tears, or I'd see that Paul's in pain, or the hardship that he was going through.
You can be against insurmountable odds and seems like the prognosis is it's over. And what Paul DeYoung's life is teaching us, it's never over, and you can fight through it.
Fast forward a few days later to getting in and having the surgery and going the next day, and the guy's up bouncing around. He's not in bed. He's literally had another brain surgery, and what took him weeks, I'm like, in 24 hours, and I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, I feel great.
The day that we went to see our oncologist, after being with them for 2 years, it's been a 2-year journey of the immunotherapy, that appointment we had when he said, the good news is that there is no sign of active cancer in your body or your brain. And I said to him, well, what does that mean? Are you meaning that we can live forward from here? And he said, yeah, that's what I mean.
I mean, there's a scarring from where the cancer was in my lungs, liver and adrenal glands, but they cannot find any active cancer. They will not medically say you're cancer-free because cancer can return and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is what was absolutely impossible, medically speaking, now stands to be argued as being a miracle.
You've been left with some things that make life a little more challenging, but you're still living through, around them almost, which is great.
I have lost my right-hand vision, not just in one eye, but in both eyes, and that's been challenging on more than one occasion. I think about the one that opened the door, and I didn't see the door, that began this whole process of thinking I had concussion and then finally getting the scanning to discover that I had tumours in the brain. And those tumours would have taken me out within the 3 months. And so she was the angel in disguise.
I've heard Dad say you might see more in the light, but you learn more in the darkness. And I think just the whole journey's taught not just him, but all of us a whole lot more about life.
I think we can defy the odds. I think we can push through and believe that if we're willing to really see the bigger picture and get the help needed and to allow others that have got hope in their hearts into our world, we can stand up and we can find a way through. And even if we don't find the way through we expected, we can believe there's a bigger purpose that can unfold from the journey that we're walking.
What do we thank God for?